There was a meta that single-handedly changed the course of an entire medium class and how weapons were handled by the devs as a whole. And that meta was with only upon an arena, that was a meta that I would consider the most dominant there ever was, the turning point in the devs' decisions. This is the story of how a single gadget and one other weapon scared the devs so much they'll never be outright good again. This meta's reign lasted only a few weeks, so why did it scare the devs so much? During a small period of time, the best build was the Defib and a good old-fashioned Model 1887. At face value, that doesn't sound too bad. I mean, that was a medium per team and the Defib was almost essential. However, there wasn't just one medium on those teams. Not even just two. That's right, 3 mediums all on defibrillator on each team. I mean, sometimes that was a revolver too, but we don't talk about that. As you can imagine, Embarks wouldn't let this slide, and they really couldn't. So to kill the meta, they nerfed the Defib. Even now, the Defib is still under the scope of the devs, and understandably. It did need a nerf, and it was pretty clear. I'm surprised it took as long as it did, to be fair. The model, on the other hand, was arguably struck in a worse way. Surprisingly though, the model wasn't slapped down immediately, and it was left for a while. Unfortunately for model players at the time, Embarks was only baiting us. Sad times for us. They did the equivalent of grabbing the poor weapon by its neck and dragging it through the dirt, and then putting it on life support. You may think that I'm exaggerating, and I kinda am, but it's justified though, I promise. At first, they only nerfed the range, which makes sense, it is a shotgun after all. But only a few patches later, from 16 damage per pellet to 13 damage per pellet, a major nerf to the model, but they weren't done yet. Skip forward to update 5.8, they nerfed the damage even further to 11 per pellet, completely destroying the weapon. And now it felt like you were just healing the opponent every time you attacked them. It does such little damage. The players were quite upset about this, understandably, including myself. Sure, the model needed a nerf, but there's no denying that. But you couldn't play the weapon anymore, if you could even call it that. It was as deadly as throwing a Namatama plushie at somebody. It wasn't very effective. Though it does make you wonder what Embarks was thinking. Do you think they were like,
hey, do you think we were a bit too hot? Nah, that's wild.
To their credit, they did buff its damage from 11 to 12, but only because that was ridiculously less powerful than its successor, the Cerberus, which in itself is a completely different story. Safe to say, Embarks will never let any weapon become this good again. Mostly.
Hold on a second, why does this ruin medium? Sure, I see why it's affecting balancing as a whole, but how was medium hit specifically?
A very good question, but in fact, we've kind of already answered it. The Defib. Every class has their own gadgets that are 1, exclusive to their class, which yeah, the Defib is only on medium, but 2, a necessity to bring. The Defib was having trouble filling that necessity like it did before. The players had to accept the Defib wasn't essentially going to give you the second life with no repercussions anymore. This made people upset, and they stopped playing medium, mostly out of spite to be fair. Thankfully, medium now has weapons good enough that playing Defib is slightly more worth it. But this time around, the other classes are essential and have more players than it did before, so 3M was never revived. And that's how the Defib model remained today. The model no longer does as much damage as it once did, and now the Defib has major drawbacks, like revive sickness, revive charge, etc. But hey, maybe the model and Defib aren't as bad as they seem. I mean, I wouldn't recommend running 3 of them all at the same time, but maybe they're not as bad anymore. I mean, I do see Defibs on almost every single medium that I play with, and if you're not running Defib, there's not really much you can replace it with on medium anyway. But for model, there's better weapons unfortunately. I mean, as a former model player, that's a bit upsetting, but you just have to live with it, I guess. And there's always Cerberus, which is just a better model nowadays.